Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the delay in addition to not having my PowerPoint available. I swear, like 5 minutes before, everything was working fine and I was going to start logging in and nothing was happening. So I don't know what happened. So right now I just drove to the college and I'm trying to access the internet there from outside the building. um, but anyhow, I wanted to thank you guys for inviting me to present about proper livestock handling. And I can share these slides later so that folks can access them just for reference. But I think most of you all are livestock producers already and probably already have some experience in working and handling livestock or had your share of challenges along the way, as far as possibly being kicked or gored by a ram or a sheep, or just all the things that can happen when you're around animals. So with that said, we can start talking about what is preferred as we start working with livestock. And I always start, like with our youth camp, is talking about safety first. So making sure that everyone in your group understands the all the things that could go wrong, right? And also sharing with them some best practices on what can be done. And then, just being observant in with your group as to who might have already some experience working with livestock. And you can all easily tell sometimes that some folks don't have experience, and so they kind of shy off or are a little bit afraid, and so not to push them into uncomfortable situations, because that can easily result in a wreck or a bad situation. So really understanding your surroundings, that includes the facility that you're at, the types of equipment that you have. Is it indoor? Is the ground concrete? So just thinking about all of the things that that involves your surroundings. Is there proper lighting? Are you working at what time of the day? Is it hot outside? Is it windy? The weather, all sorts of things that you want to think about. The other thing too is understanding the types of animals you're going to be working with. So working with sheep, cattle, horses, they all have different behavior. They also respond to you differently. Of course, one's smaller, one's larger. So sometimes you feel like it's easier to work with the smaller animals, but sometimes that's a little bit more difficult too, because they're much smaller. You're going to have to bend over more. You're going to have to, really use your different parts of your body that you might be not used to, like your back, your legs, those type of things. So the type of animal, of course, like the species that you're working with, is also important. Understanding them a little bit more. Make sure you assess your facilities. When I say that, is like just do a quick walk around in regards to looking at things that might injure an animal, injure you. There might be like a break in the fence or a gate that the hinge is not connecting. So kind of do your analysis up front before you start your activities, so that you're prepared ahead of time. I like to go out there the day before or earlier, just to kind of test things out before everybody shows up. So you're not, especially when we're doing like hands-on workshops or those type of things when people are on site, just to make sure that you're trying to walk through what's going to happen, how things are going to flow, to make sure that your audience is in a safe place. Your folks that are helping you on your particular project is also going to be safe. So checking the facilities out is important. The equipment is just the same, looking at your chute hinges, the gates, making sure that you have maybe extra tie rope just in case something goes wrong. You can tie things up. You could, like using the head catch or either the hind end where you're closing the gates, or does it swing, does it slide, does it move on a pulley system, where things your fingers can get caught. So really identifying those and making sure that the people that are helping you is also aware of those situations, including your personal protective equipment, just meaning you're not going to wear sandals out to work with livestock. And sometimes, tennis shoes, I like wearing tennis shoes. Lately, I used to wear boots a lot more, but as you get older, you have like foot problems and you can't really stand out there with your leather boots all day sometimes. So, making sure that you have comfortable shoes that is also going to protect you, at least your toes or your foot, and wear some jeans that will, help with, like little small, maybe a wire catching on your clothing or things like that. Long sleeve shirt, cap or a hat or a handkerchief, your leather gloves, just things that you're going to need. If you're doing herd health management, you also want to think about the supplies that you're going to be handling, like your needles, your syringes, the types of medication, if you prick yourself, cleaning it right away, making sure that you have water available to flush either your eyes or any types of injuries you might have, having a first aid kit there. Sometimes when you're in a rush, you kind of forget a lot of those things. So it's pretty good to kind of have a self-check sheet to make sure everything's a go. I usually, like when we're working on our livestock, I usually try to get everything loaded up the day before. So the morning I just concentrate on, packing the vaccines, and making sure it's on ice, those type of things. So just kind of planning ahead is very, very important. Looking, like I said, the weather, if it's cold, sometimes when you're doing like preg check, that's going to be in the fall. Up in our country, we might have a cold day. One day, the next day is going to be really hot. So it's kind of hard to project, but make sure that you have, all the proper attire for those situations, like your mud shoes if needed, or, bringing in extra, maybe sand or something for where it's icy, looking at those type of spots. Or if it's muddy, things get slick a little bit. So just kind of making sure that you're taking the proper safety precautions in those conditions. The other thing, like I mentioned, when you have multiple people assisting, because when you're working on large herds, usually you invite family out and they all want to participate. So that involves, running the livestock through the pens, loading them up, getting them into the chute. You might have, pushers, you might have folks that are just doing injections. You might have only folks doing catching, net catch or either the hind end. If you have enough help, sometimes it's just you by yourself having to do all of that. But you want to go through that checklist to make sure that you're in a safe environment. I know this year one of our safety challenges was we decided to do the yearlings in the squeeze chute, and when you're injecting on the neck, it's a lot harder because a bigger cow you can squeeze and it still allows you room to move around the neck, but these yearlings are a lot more, they're narrow, much more narrow than the cows. And so when you squeeze, you still don't have enough room to work around the neck region on some squeeze chutes. And so, we either have our wrist or our hand being squished to the pin. So those type of things, those, you start identifying some of those challenges as you start moving along. So you know, the more you work with livestock, the more you are out there, you start observing and creating those what if things that you shouldn't be thinking about, but you have to go through that list. The other, okay, I just lost my presentation that I was following. The other areas are really learning how to observe your animals. So meaning their behavior. And if you've been, you know, if you had your herd for a long time, but if you're working with other folks' animals and you don't know what their attitude or you like their behavior is, you can spot out the tough ones already when you kind of do your walk around in there. You see like some of them kind of shy away from you quicker, or either come at you aggressively, hold their head up high, pawing at the ground, those type of things. So you kind of take note of those problem cows that you might encounter. I know we do vaccinations with my aunt, and most of her cattle are horned, so it's kind of harder to catch horned cattle in your squeeze chute because they kind of have to maneuver around, and so you tend to lose a few if your head catch person is not as good or as savvy. Um, and so that could potentially, you know, be a situation there. So you kind of, and then you have some that, you know, cows that want to lay down in the chute, or they want to kind of jump forward. So you know those cows already when you're pushing them through. And so you're a little bit more prepared as you move forward. um so hopefully that kind of helped you guys. So my next slide was about creating a less stressful environment for your animals. It suggested that, you know, you work in a calm condition. And if you've been around livestock all, you know, most of your life, you even riding horses, you know, you're always being told, you know, when you're upset or when you're, you know, the animal's going to know your tension. When you're getting on them on a horse, they're going to know that you feel a little more tense. They're going to be kind of feeling what you're feeling, and maybe kind of getting that understanding of what's going on today. You know, it's not the usual self. So you kind of, whatever you project is usually what you get back, right? With your livestock and anything. So making sure that you're going to use like minimal noises, so you're not yelling, shouting, and that can get hard, like I said, if you have multiple families come together, or either, if you guys remember the old days when we bring community branding, community members coming to a branding corral, you have a lot of people, and it's like a fun event where you're naturally loud. And so it creates that, um not knowing, you know, when I was younger, not knowing that it affected the livestock and its demeanor. But now that I'm older and I, you know, working with my kids and trying to teach them to handle the livestock so it's easier for us to work with, those are some strategies that are suggested. So minimal noises, um, understanding animals' pressure points. So, you know, when you kind of move toward the shoulder point of the animal, you're going to turn them around. So if you're wanting to move in the forward direction, you want to stay on their hind end side. And you can gradually move from the right to the left to maneuver them in the direction that you want them to go. So understanding those type of points. Also, a lot of work has gone into designing corrals and alleyways. It's suggested to have a darker alleyway so that the animal's not seeing all the things that's happening around the chute. And so when they get to the chute, all they see is the light kind of coming out of the chute. So they're always going to tend to want to move forward toward the chute. So that's one suggestion that has been shared. I myself, you know, I haven't done that in my corral. We have two corrals, and both of my corrals don't have the dark alleyway, but I think our cattle are, calm enough to work with to, push them through that openness. So, the more you work with your animals, you kind of create their sense of understanding what's going to happen that day. They know what the process is. So it's almost like training that animal to be able to be worked with. The other things, avoid using cattle prods or hot shots. We like using flags as a part of not necessarily to whip them up, but to have them see the end of the flag, so that it's a tool, or it's an extension of your arm to kind of get in front of the animal quicker, turning them around or moving them forward. You can also run, do practice run with your cattle where you're not actually working at the chute. You're just kind of running them through the chute. And you're not, having any stress on them, so that they're a little bit more comfortable with understanding which way to go, how to get through that particular system that you may have designed. And just really getting them comfortable with the situation that you have. And then, of course, the day handling the livestock, and that's a part of the safety precautions. I know I've worked with several veterinarians where they always tell you, stand close to the animal, as close as you can when you're working with them, because if they're gonna kick or push off, if they're gonna kick, they're gonna end up pushing you off rather than actually kicking you directly. So try to stay as close so it pushes you away from them. And of course, there's always the hazards of getting kicked, but really understanding how their joints work. Cows kind of tend to kick to the side, and calves a little bit more to straight back. And then your horses, of course, is straight back. So kind of understanding, how they move their legs also allows you to help to work with them closer. So, and then also making sure that you identify their blind spots. And I always tell my kids, talk to your animals so that they know you're there. Don't just come up on them and spook them, but make some slight noises, talk to them that you're in the corral with them, or you're coming up from behind, maybe you're bringing feed in, but make sure that they hear you, and they know that you're in their space. So that's a good common practice, just making sure that they know that you're in the same space. Like I said, understanding their behavior. Once you get into a corral, you kind of start seeing, what types of things, which animal might be the one that you have problems with. Here, I wanted to talk a little bit about, working with sheep. There's strategies of working with sheep when you're shearing. And I know Jesse's pretty good at this. I've struggled with it just because I feel like I'm smaller stature, but I've seen small folks do it as just as good. But I think it takes practice to get that down. Holding the sheep on their buttocks, and then holding them kind of like in a standing up position where their face is nearly to your face or your chest area. Their hind end is, right up against your body. And so your all four legs are away from you. And that's kind of how they move the animals. And if you see folks not holding animals down or tying them down, the main thing is trying to keep one one or two of the legs off the ground. So once they know they're on the ground or they can access the ground, they're going to try to get up from you, making sure that the animal, all four legs are away from you, the back end is up against your body, the head is right around your shoulder or your near your face area, but the main thing is the legs away from you. And so when they start shearing, they start moving the sheep around and laying it down in different different positions. But the main point is trying to not allow that sheep to get their foot on the ground. So you're going to put sort of like your foot is going to become sort of like a wedge between the ground and creating that space to keep that leg pointing toward the air, so that joint is not fully touching the ground. So because once it does, then it's going to tend to jump up on you. So that's kind of the key strategy for that. And like I said, it takes a lot of practice to do that and to get good at doing that. And I was talking a bit earlier, they're smaller animals, so you're having to bend over a lot more and be on your, be bent in that position. So you're going to have a lot of pressure on your waist, your back, and your hind legs. And also, the other thing that I was saying I learned is when you're trying to put the sheep down, they're pretty heavy. So they request that you pull the nose into either the flank or the shoulder and just put pressure on the hip side so that you're turning the sheep and putting pressure on it. It'll automatically lay down if you do it correctly. And that way you're not trying to flank it and throw it on all four when it's heavy. So that's an easier way to work with sheep. With cattle and calves, it's a lot harder just because they are a bit heavier than the sheep for calves. But I always tell the folks that is helping me is always work on the back end once it has, it's laying down. You don't want to work on the front end, because if, say, the leg gets loose from a rope or whoever is securing it, that calf is going to kick at you, and that's very, very painful. So always try to work on the back side. So if it's on its side, you're going to be on the back, you're going to lean forward and work on either castration or do your injections or your branding. But that's always what I try to teach folks. And also, similar to sheep, understanding how their joints move. So if you don't have a person with a rope on the hind end, you can also have someone put one foot on pushing the back side of the leg forward and holding one back so that they're unable to kind of get away from you. And also on the neck side, if you have a rope on that side, you want to try to avoid it from choking. So you can put both legs between the neck and having the rope kind of not put so much pressure on the throat region so that you're not choking the animal, because it doesn't take long after your animal chokes. It's harder for them to get up. They lost the oxygen and they just become weak really quick. So you can actually lose calves if you're not careful. The same way with if you have somebody that's flanking calves, to not throw them down so much, but to lay them down gently or move them down. So those are some practices that I have when I work with my kids and our animals. But when you're putting the larger animals through the chute or the gate, the chute is a huge help. Just understanding that how the chute works and making sure that it kind of is helpful to you. I know our office, we have a smaller pre-furt chute, and the part I don't like about it is where you squeeze the animal and where you do the neck catch. If you don't do them in the right order, or they tend to hit each other. And so you either have to have, two people doing that, even though it should be one, but really, kind of understand how your chute operates. We also have a larger chute, which is really nice. But what I've also noticed on that side is when you do the net catch, you have to have someone always holding that down, because a slight movement of trying to open it can open it easily. So making sure you kind of understand the different chutes that are out there, or what you're using. So that's kind of what I have, and I apologize for not having my presentation up, but like I said, each animal is very different. Working with smaller like rabbits, you want to hold them on their shoulder area in the back. And just even dogs, like aggressiveness, you want to put your hand on their shoulder side so they're not able to turn and snap and bite at you. So those are just some, I guess, hints. I have never worked with a pig, so I'm not really sure how you handle pigs, but I've seen 4-H youth handle pigs properly. So I'm guessing the more practice you have to do that, you get better at it. But I myself have never had a pig, so I would not be able to tell you the proper handling technique for that. On the lambs, because they're so small, you can hold them in your arms, just making sure that wherever the person might be injecting for shots or things like that, your hands and your arms are out of the way. So just holding it in a proper position. And that's easy to do just because they're a lot tiny and they're cute. Facilities. So here on the reservation, we have lots of different types of corrals. We have wood corrals that are made out of pallet. We have pipe corrals, but everything, pretty much works out for us. We're good at doing that, right? We're good at creating something that's going to work in our favor, and trying to make that whatever we end up doing work. So whatever equipment or chute or corral that's there, like I said, just go through those safety points. Look at places where something could get hurt, something could get snagged, your clothing, the animal, wires are exposed, those type of things. So you want to do your walk around. If you have extra money, you can, buy the tub to push livestock forward. But like I said, if you work with your animals enough, most of the times they're going to be calm, and they're going to work with you. So I always try to say, work with your livestock a lot more, so that they understand what you're trying to do. I know for us, sometimes we're out there on foot a lot more, and when we bring the horses out, they're not used to that too. So you also want to introduce horses to your animals, however way you're going to be gathering your animals, kind of get them used to that. So and the animals are not, they're pretty smart, so they can pick up on the things that you're going to be doing. I think for corral design, the main things that you want to think about is that your animals are able to move forward. Pay attention to your gaits and design the gaits to work in your favor, such as sorting, not against, making it difficult for you to sort. What is your gate situation like? Is it easy to open? Is it an easy and close? easy to open and close. You know, that type of stuff. I think that's important. And also taking a look at your loading space. What is it, high off the ground? Where is it located? Can you pull a trailer back there? Can your animals, you know, easily be loaded without getting hurt? So those are areas that I wanted to touch base on. I probably missed a lot of things that I wanted to talk about just because of the stressful situation of getting kicked off the internet. But if you guys have questions, please do. If you have any suggestions to also share with the other attendees, things that you may have experienced, that would be helpful also.
Okay, well, thanks, Benita. If we have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, but I'll go ahead and start it off. So I do have a question. This is something that we are experiencing right now. Like, where do you dispose excessive or expired vaccinations and syringes and needles? Do you know where to dispose, like in local areas that would like accept these items, or how do you dispose vaccines?
That's a tough one. I know for a while there, IHS would allow us to dump the needles and stuff in the biohazard area, and also dispose of like medication. They have a site there that you could do that. The doctor that used to allow us to do that left, and so the next person's kind of a little more stringent on that. So I think finding a health facility that would allow you to expose of that, because they're willing to help. Some of them are willing to help. But I think asking around for sure.
Okay.
That has been successful for us here at the local Taylor Health Center. But sometimes you can take it in there, sneak it in there and get rid of it.
Okay. I think I'll contact them first.
Yeah. And you know what? Some doctors, and when you go there, you know, share what you do, because some of them are willing to give you expired bandages that they just throw out. So that's been helpful for us. So like if if we get a cut on a horse or things like that, I have those type of equipment, or either they're getting rid of sutures. Some of them might be willing to give that to you. So but it's best to get to know who they are first. And it's hard because they rotate now.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize there's they have expired bandages. That's something new that I heard right now.
Yeah, so like they have these like a what are they called? Petroleum, like a gel thing that you would apply to like burns and cuts.
Yeah.
So those type of things expire. So but they're still good. Like I've used it on some horses and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's interesting. I never knew about that.
Even those they have like betadine scrubs, like you just kind of break it open a little and then it'll squeeze out the betadine so you can clean the wound areas. Those they get rid of too.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, that's pretty good. That's good information. Thanks, Benita. That's really helpful. I might give a contact to my health facility here in Crown Point.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to unmute yourselves, feel free. Go ahead and ask any questions that you have online. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and move forward. Thank you, Benita. That was really interesting. A lot you have mentioned. Sorry that you're dealing with a lot of technical difficulties. I know that's not always fun. But I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, especially what you're going through now. So appreciate it for coming on here and doing that presentation for us. And so, but we'll go ahead and proceed on to our next slide. We do have a webinar next week that's going to focus on noxious weed management and identification webinar. This is going to be presented by Dr. Leslie Beck. She's the NMSU CES weed specialist, and she's going to be providing that presentation. And if you guys would like to go ahead and register for this webinar, head over to this link. This link is going to take you to our NSA project website. It's going to be located under the New Mexico State University website. So if you want to go ahead and register, this is going to be starting on June 6th, and that's going to be on a Monday starting at 5:30 p.m. And like we said, there's a couple ways to reach us if you have any questions. We have our contact information here. So you have Jesse Jim's contact info, and so is mine. And we also have a vacant position for a horticulture field assistant. So if there's anybody that you may know that would like to become part of our team, do let us know. Give Jessie a call, or actually give her an email. We also are on Facebook page, so we do post our upcoming events, our newsletter, and we also notify our followers of our YouTube channel of what has been posted the past webinars. And like we said, we have monthly newsletters and YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, feel free. And here's our website link that's pretty simple. So you can go ahead and tap on your URL and just type in nsaproject.nmsu.edu. So it is that simple. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and stop it here. Thank you for joining us this evening. So I hope you guys all take back something from this webinar. So appreciate it. And you guys all have a good night. The Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project is the New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service initiative delivered in collaboration with Danae College Land Grant Office and COPE, which stands for Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. This program that we have here is funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers Program. In short, we do call it OASDBFR. So to proceed on to our next slide, as a project, we aim to improve the operations, profitability, and sustainability of socially disadvantaged Navajo farmers and ranchers and veteran farmers and ranchers. We also aim to increase Navajo producers' knowledge in the use of USDA programs, and this can be the NRCS, FSA, RD, and RMA programs and services, and those of other resource providers. And we also encourage and increase the local production and consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy food by Navajo families and individuals. So that's just a quick introduction to our project and who we are.